Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. Today is going to be another Bible study with us, and are you making faces?
Maybe.
Today's Bible study is going to be out of Jonah. So we have planned to go through the whole book of Jonah, which will be 4 weeks worth of Jonah Bible study. We're going to tackle Jonah. We'll tackle him.
Poor Jonah.
Poor Jonah.
So the title name is Jonah, and that does not identify the author. Usually the name of the title is an indicator of who the author is.
Sometimes, yeah.
But in this case, the title is based on the character of the chapter, and that is Jonah.
The breakdown in our Bible about Jonah says that there are no other indicators in Scripture to identify who the author is of Jonah. So, we do not know, but we know that this story was put in here for a reason for us to read and learn from. So
we're going to read chapter 1, and then we'll have a discussion.
Now the word of the Lord came to Jonah, the son of... Look up how to say A-M-I-T-T-A-I. Amittai.
Jonah, the son of Amittai, saying,
Amittai.
Arise,
Okay, we got it. Arise, go to Nineveh, the great city, and call out against it, for their evil has come up before me. But Jonah rose to flee to Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. He went down to Joppa and found a ship going to Tarshish. So he paid the fare and went down into it to go with them to Tarshish, away from the presence of the Lord. But the Lord hurled a great wind upon the sea, and there was a mighty tempest on the sea, so that the ship threatened to break up. Then the mariners were afraid, and each cried out to his God. And they hurled the cargo that was in the ship into the sea to lighten it for them. But Jonah had gone down into the inner parts of the ship and had lain down and was fast asleep. So the captain came and said to him, What do you mean, you sleeper? Arise, call out to your God. Perhaps the God will give a thought to us, that we may not perish. And they said to one another, Come, let us cast lots, that we may know on whose account this evil has come upon us. So they cast lots, and the lot fell on Jonah. Then they said to him, Tell us on whose account this evil has come upon us. What is your occupation, and where do you come from? What is your country, and of what people are you? And he said to them, I am a Hebrew, and I fear the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the dry land. Then the men were exceedingly afraid, and said to him, What is this that you have done? For the men knew that he was fleeing from the presence of the Lord, because he had told them. Then they said to him, What shall we do to you, that the sea may quiet down for us? For the sea grew more and more tempestuous. He said to them, Pick me up and hurl me into the sea. Then the sea will quiet down for you. For I know it is because of me that this great tempest has come upon you. Nevertheless, the men rowed hard to get back to dry land, but they could not, for the sea grew more and more tempestuous. I know I'm butchering that, I'm sorry. Against them. Therefore they called out to the Lord, O Lord, let us not perish for this man's life, and lay not on us innocent blood. For you, O Lord, have done as it pleased you. So they picked up Jonah and hurled him into the sea, and the sea ceased from its raging. And the men feared the Lord exceedingly, and they offered a sacrifice to the Lord and made vows. And the Lord appointed a great fish to swallow up Jonah, and Jonah was in the belly of a fish 3 days and 3 nights. Now that last one about him getting swallowed up is separated from the rest of them, and it goes more with chapter 2, so we'll probably talk about verse 17 of chapter 1 when we talk about chapter 2, because it's kind of the lead up to what happens in chapter 2.
Verses 1 and 2 say, Now the word of the Lord came to Jonah, the son of Amittai, saying, Arise, go to Nineveh, the great city, and call out against it, for their evil has come up before me. So the Lord is telling Jonah that he needs to go to Nineveh.
And prophesy to them that their wicked ways are not going to turn out well. Oh, well, this is kind of fun. It says Jonah means dove, a symbol for Israel as silly and senseless. That's what his name means?
It's a symbol for Israel as silly. So a dove is
a symbol for
silly and senseless to Israel?
It says Jonah will be true to his name. Son of Amittai means son of my faithfulness. Jonah will remain the object of God's faithful love. Interesting. Jonah's been called to go to Nineveh and warn them, basically. So then we're going to do verse 3 says, But Jonah rose to flee to Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. He went down to Joppa and found a ship going to Tarshish. So he paid the fare and went down into it to go with them to Tarshish, away from the presence of the Lord. Jonah is finding his way out. He's trying to run from God. And to us, that sounds kind of silly because we know that God's everywhere, but we also try to hide from him sometimes too when we don't want to do what he's calling us to do. So
in verse 3, going to Tarshish is mentioned 3 times to accentuate that Jonah is not going to Nineveh, which is where God told him to go. He is going the opposite direction.
And then the commentary says when it says he went down, this is also a euphemism for death. The suggestion that each step away from the presence of the Lord is one step closer to going down to death. So he's just taking himself further and further away from God.
Verses 4 and 5 say, But the Lord hurled a great wind upon the sea, and there was a mighty tempest on the sea, so that the ship threatened to break up. Then the mariners were afraid, and each cried out to his God. And they hurled up the cargo that was in the ship into the sea to lighten it for them. But Jonah had gone down into the inner part of the ship, and had lain down and was fast asleep.
So God throws some waves in the sea and creates this big storm to cause chaos for everyone that is on this ship. And that is all attributed to Jonah's bad decision.
The mariners on the ship didn't know what was going on and why this craziness was happening, so they started throwing stuff overboard because they thought maybe it would help lighten it. But in all reality, that's not what was happening. And they prayed to their gods, which...
probably any god they could think of.
Yeah.
Because they were trying to be safe.
Yes. So they were trying to get safety, but safety was not coming to them because their gods are not God.
Word. Verse 6, it says, So the captains came and said to him, What do you mean, you sleeper? Arise, call out to your God. Perhaps the God will give a thought to us, that we may not perish. So they're saying, hey guy, why are you sleeping? All of our gods are not answering our requests to calm this sea. So call out to your God also and see if he can fix the situation for us, save us. Which means that they don't have a lot of faith in their gods.
No.
If they're wanting everybody to pray to any god to try to help them.
Verse 7 says, And they said to one another, Come, let us cast lots, that we may know on whose account this evil has come upon us. So they cast lots, and the lots fell on Jonah.
They're desperately trying to figure out, like, what is the cause of this and how are we going to fix this? And, and so apparently they already think that somebody specifically is the issue, which is kind of weird to me because if it was storming really bad, I would just say, hey, it's storming really bad. I wouldn't be like, you caused the storm.
No, but
what kind of decisions have you made?
In all reality, whenever it rains, I've heard people say it's raining because somebody made God cry. Or like it's thundering because God's mad.
I think I've heard that whenever I was a kid. Is that real? I think
they think it is.
Anyways.
They say these waves are being strong because somebody done made God mad.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so they are casting lots to figure out who has caused this evil to come upon us. So if you don't know what casting lots is, it was kind of like dice that they used in the ancient world to find answers from God. They believe that God controlled the outcome of the dice, and so whatever the answer was when they threw the dice, then that's what they went with. And the fact that the lots fell on Jonah points to that God had his hand in that for sure.
So the lot fell on Jonah, so all the fingers pointed right to him.
Verse 8 says, Then they said to him, Tell us on whose account this evil has come upon us. What is your occupation, and where do you come from? What is your country, and of what people are you?
Who, why, when, what, where, how.
Yeah, they're basically going to make Jonah tell his story so that they can figure out what's going on here and how they can fix it.
9 and 10 say, And he said to them, I am a Hebrew, and I fear the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the dry land. Then the men were exceedingly afraid and said to him, What is this that you have done? For the men knew that he was fleeing from the presence of the Lord because he had told them. So whenever he says that he is a Hebrew, it was a term used to identify Israelites.
So I'm going to read a little bit of the commentary on verses 9 and 10. It says, Jonah claims to fear the Lord, but his actions contradict his confession. How often are we guilty of that exact same thing? God of heaven refers to the universal and supreme God, made the sea. Ironically, Jonah confesses to fear the God who controls the sea, which Jonah is crossing to escape from the presence of God. That sounds a little crazy when you think of it that way. The sailors who were afraid are now exceedingly afraid. Jonah says that he fears God. He's saying that God also controls the sea. He made the land and the sea and everything, but now they're sitting in the middle of the sea. And that's the transportation he was using to flee from God. God's showing him who's boss.
The other men on the boat are now realizing how powerful Jonah's God actually is, and even though Jonah's not being faithful to God, he is being a witness to these other men on the boat, and so now they realize that God is a powerful, mighty God, and he is capable of anything.
So now not only are they saying, oh wow, his God might be like the real God, and that might be a stretch. They might not be thinking that far into it. We might be just thinking that far into it. But also, they're scared now because they're realizing that Jonah's God can move the ocean and has caused the storm to come upon him. Verse 11 says, Then they said to him, What shall we do to you that the sea may quiet down for us? For the sea grew more and more tempestuous. Tempestuous, that's a hard one.
So here the men are asking Jonah what they should do with him
To fix
the situation.
To calm the storm. How do we get rid of this guy?
Hey bud, you did this. How do we get out of this mess?
Yeah.
12 and 13 say, He said to them, Pick me up and hurl me into the sea. Then the sea will quiet down for you. For I know it is because of me that this great tempest has come upon you. Nevertheless, the men rowed harder to get back to dry land, but they could not, for the sea grew more and more tempestuous against them.
Okay, so the commentary on this one is pretty interesting and not really a way that we wouldn't have thought of the reasoning for them not throwing him over to be this. So it says, It would have been natural for these pagans to hurl Jonah overboard immediately, but they did not. The sea grew more and more why do I keep having to say this word? Tempestuous, for God was not ready to have Jonah delivered to dry land. So that reminds me of like Christ and going to the cross and how everything had to play out in just the right timing for it to work out the way that God had planned it. And so we just never really thought about it like that.
It's in God's time and not ours.
I just would have thought, well, I mean, in their heads, they're thinking that they can beat the storm, or they, like they can outdo the storm, they can get to land faster, but
without having to throw
somebody
Jonah
overboard. Yeah, that was not the reason, or that might have been their reason for it, but that wasn't like God's reason for why they didn't throw him out. Anyways, 14 and 15 say, Therefore they called out to the Lord, O Lord, let us not perish for this man's life, and lay not on us innocent blood. For you, O Lord, have done as it pleased you. So they picked up Jonah and hurled him into the sea, and the sea ceased from its raging.
The other sailors have abandoned their gods and are now calling out to Jonah's God.
What are they asking him? Don't let us die, and don't make us responsible for
killing a man.
Yeah. So they feel bad for throwing him out, which I feel like any human being would.
I would feel bad if I had to throw somebody overboard.
Even if you knew they did wrong,
yeah,
I guess it would still be hard to be like, sorry,
you're
out. I think it says something about them coming to the realization of who God is, because now they're calling out to him, which means that they are having some sort of faith that God can do way more than what they had ever expected.
So when they picked up Jonah and threw him out, the storm stopped because God was ready for the storm to stop. The sacrifice had been made. Jonah being the sacrifice.
Oh, jeez. The commentary on that says, As God had hurled the wind into the sea to start the storm, the sailors now hurl Jonah to stop the storm. So whatever started the storm has to also be the thing that stops the storm.
Verse 16 says, Then the men feared the Lord exceedingly, and they offered a sacrifice to the Lord and made vows.
See, now the sacrifice happens. Jonah wasn't the sacrifice.
Yeah, but Jonah is what God wanted.
So here you see from them learning about the power of God and then being very fearful of who he is, then that is turning into a respect kind of fear, which is the kind of fear of God that we are all as Christians called to have. And they're realizing that he is deserving of their respect and feel compelled to sacrifice to the Lord and also made vows to him, whatever that means, because I don't know what it would mean. Like, what kind of vows would they have made?
And what was their sacrifice?
Google. What kind of sacrifice did the mariners offer after throwing Jonah out? And what kind of vows did they make? You're gonna have to.
That's like baseball. Mariners.
Oh,
I think of Mariner, I think of the ball players.
I think of marinara sauce. Marinara sauce. A typical sacrifice was an animal.
This is a commentary from BibleHub.com. There may have been some livestock on board suitable for sacrifice, but the offering could only be complete on landing, wherefore they made vows.
They were in the right mindset of wanting to give a sacrifice, but they couldn't do that because they were on a boat.
Yes.
So they made vows. What kind of vows did they make to God? They were going to make a sacrifice, maybe? And offered a sacrifice to the Lord, a spiritual sacrifice. A sacrifice of praise and thanksgiving is what this one says, for a safe deliverance from the storm. So probably like a prayer of thanksgiving, maybe, instead of like an actual animal sacrifice if they didn't have animals.
But who really knows? Because
Yeah, we
all
don't.
it
I mean,
says
maybe
is
they did have animals.
sacrifice.
Or maybe they planned to slaughter an animal once they got on land, like the other one
Yeah.
said. Or maybe they were just praising and thankful. For other sorts of sacrifice, they seem not to have materials for, since they had thrown overboard. Oh yeah, they threw everything out.
Yeah.
They would have had. I mean, I guess maybe they wouldn't have thrown an animal out, but what they had in the ship to lighten it, unless there might be anything left for this purpose. Rather, it is to be understood as a ceremonial sacrifice. The vow that they would have offered a sacrifice when they arrived to their own country or should return to Judea to come to Jerusalem. So yeah, probably a little bit of both. Like a thankful prayer and then also
A vow that they would give a
sacrifice.
like a
Okay.
animal sacrifice.
Now
or
we know.
something.
The last verse is verse 17, and it says, "The Lord appointed a great fish to swallow up Jonah, and Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights." And we are going to talk about that one next week when we do chapter 2.
That, my friends, is all for this Bible study, and we hope you guys got something out of it. We didn't do it like we normally do it.
See, typically we like to pre-prep our Bible studies, that way we know as much about it as possible when presenting it to you guys. Not to say that we always get it right, but we want to be as accurate as possible. But this one is more of a story, and it's something that we've all heard quite a bit, and so we thought maybe we could just do like a little bit more of a, we're literally learning together. You guys are learning with us as we are learning. If you like our Bible studies, you can catch them on our channel every Monday. And why'd you look at me weird?
Let's just look at you.
And we also post on Wednesdays and Fridays. Wednesdays, we are going through a book called Anxious for Nothing by John MacArthur. And if you are dealing with anxiety, we would highly encourage you to check out those videos or invest in that book. And then on Fridays, we do some fun videos. We do makeup, fashion, art, craft things, anything that looks fun to us for the week. So we hope you guys will check those out too. And other than that,
if you guys do like our videos, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel. And if you want to be notified when we upload, hit the little bell after you subscribe.
we hope you guys have a good day, have a good week, and don't forget to shine. We'll see you in the next one.
Bye.